Hey, Dominic.
Yes.
I want to stop you there because you talked about your work within the justice system, and this is what I wanted to ask you specifically last show. Talk to the folks about your veterans incarcerated and in the justice system. I say this because this is as cutting edge as it gets, and what you're doing and what you're committing to is as cutting edge as it gets. Way back in 1977, I did 1 year of police technology, which is law enforcement, obviously. And the big word of the day was recidivism.
Mm-hmm.
Recidivism. And I found out, and it stuck with me since the late 70s. I found out that uh, just this point where kids get arrested, in this case, Vietnam vets, they get arrested, and or before they get arrested or put into the system. If somehow someone connects with this kid before he gets into the system, or at least gives him an opportunity out, right out of the gate, they're given almost just kind of a slap on the hand. And I learned that they learn a lesson, and 85% of the time they don't go back into the system. Recidivism. Talk about that, because the minute I had heard about your incarceration program, and it's an 18-month deferment, right? Talk about that specifically. It's really one of those questions I wanted to get to last show. So go ahead, Dominic.
Thank you very much, Greg, and Val as well. I need to start at the beginning, and I need to speak to what war is. And for many of us, war becomes a moral issue. War is about the destruction of people and property, and the things that we do that are good military operations. It could be a good military kill. It could be a good military result. Could trouble those of us who think that life has a sacred base, and it's not. I'm passionate about my country. I'm exacting about being proud of America and what it stands for, what it means, and the willingness that young men and women have to protect that. We are really the greatest, most beautiful government on earth, I think. Complex, of course, but we have a lot to be proud of, and I'm happy to defend it. I always was, and I don't regret my service, my time in Vietnam, in war, in battle at all. The older I get, the more important and the more vibrant it is in me. There's a wisdom that comes from it. However, the return of soldiers, if we're going to talk about veterans who are incarcerated, you need to talk about the conditions that veterans return from war with, including me. And those conditions are known as post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury. So we have to begin at the beginning. And many soldiers who return back to civilian life have this confused effort by the people who we return to, who are applauding us, and yet we have this kind of melancholy, sadness, confusion that we left our guys back there, still in harm's way. And those guys were our brothers and sisters, and they were everything to us. We protected each other. So you have that confusion about leaving them, and the rest of it is there's a moral impact on those of us who come back and have witnessed death and destruction of property and been part of it, and that becomes a moral question that the government doesn't address. It can't, of course. You can't think about an army with the same kinds of moral dignity that I have faith in. You can't. It doesn't work. An army's got to move, and it can't move on sentiment or on sacredness. It moves on mission. It moves on purpose. It moves on result, and the results are clear once they're accomplished. And the ways that we get those results are harmful. It's about the destruction of people and property, and proudly so in many cases. However, the repeated call to destruction of people and property, and the face off of humanity, the face off of an enemy is the face off of another man with a gun or a bazooka or whatever it is that they're shouldering to harm you. And so you return with this ideal of returning home, which is wonderful, but the quick transition back to civilian life scatters us. And so many return with post-traumatic stress, which is a little complex to define. It has 1,000 faces. But also with traumatic brain injury, which is easier to know because it's medically discernible. Traumatic brain injury, I'll talk about first a little bit, if I may, is a discernible change in the frontal lobe of the brain. So the soft tissue of the brain up here in the front of foreheads and a little further back there is changed. It's not damaged; it's changed. The result of repeated explosions, or even firing your gun 500 times a day, or being in the witness of heinous and destruction, and repeated kinds of destruction of people and property, works on you, even if you don't think it does or know it does. And that work becomes apparent when you come home, and the world is recognized as kind and simple, but you're in trouble. You have a moral dilemma inside of yourself, and I call it a moral dilemma because soldiers have faith, and faith is what kept me going. Faith is what I held on to, and so if you come home with those conditions, like many soldiers do, it's possible, if you don't have a support of a good family or a good neighborhood or good friends. And remember, all soldiers come from the same places, right? The people that join the military most of the time are from traditionally underserved places in cities and in the countryside. As well, the face of that, even in soldiers who are drafted, when they were drafting soldiers, and it could happen again tomorrow, are soldiers who were not able to be in college or not able to have a deferment for any reason. And so the same soldiers, the same people fight all the wars all the time. And they're valiant, heroic. Military teaches us exactly to function. It teaches us to work in a unit. It gives us a skill. And if you don't have that skill correct and 100% right, you don't go forward. So everybody knows something in the military. Everybody's graduated to the level of your work, whatever it is. And I was in civil affairs and psychological operations, which is a G5 unit in the 1st Air Cavalry Division. And so, but I still carried a rifle, and I was wounded, and my work was various. It wasn't infantry, but I was around that and in that enough so that I was part of it, part of all of it, or everybody's part of it, whether you're infantry or a cook. And so you come home and you have this head full of broken glass, which I've defined again and again, and nobody knows it because you look well. But inside there, you're troubled, and the trouble begins, to my mind, with an affection, a personal affection for your own morality and your own faith, which is vibrated against each other. And so you got this problem, and so the problem can stop you from going forward because it's a depressing kind of issue. And you need strength. You need to be cured. You need to be understood. And nobody understands you but another veteran. And so veterans get arrested because they struggle with PTS. Well, I call it post-traumatic stress, which could mean that they can't acclimate back, and that they start to self-medicate, either drinking or smoking pot or drugs or something else, or they can't feel meaningfully connected to anything anymore, or they feel guilty about a good military kill. Those kinds of things peep up in you. And after the excitement of the return home, after the heroic entrance back into your home, your neighborhood, your family, your friends, you're left with yourself. And a lot you can't handle that because you don't know how to. You can't fix it. When you come home from war two ways: dead or changed. There's no other way to come home.